All right, thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the Brett and Matt Show. I'm Matt, he's Brett, and just want to start off by giving everyone who liked our Facebook page a big thank you, and that we really appreciate it. We've actually been doing this show for
over a year, man.
Yeah. We used to just kind of go on Twitter and tweet out our links to our website and to our YouTube videos that we record, and I don't know, we decided to try the Facebook thing, and maybe we should have done that a long time ago. But,
yeah, it seems we got a lot more followers and friends on there than we had on Twitter. That's all right though. I like it. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I like it too. So with that said, we'll get right into it. So the dust is settled. I've got a Wisconsin shirt on right now. Now that the dust is settled, and we both have some clear insight, we can actually discuss a little bit about the NCAA National Division One, the national title game between Wisconsin and Duke. Boy, as a fan, I would think that if I didn't have a dog in the fight, it would have been a really entertaining game. But as a Badger fan, I never felt comfortable with any sort of lead. And I just remember in the second half, there was a really big turning point when Coach K called timeout, and it was after that we kind of lost momentum. And I don't know, Brett, what are your thoughts?
Well, like you said, thank God the dust is settled now. If we would have done the show, that night, maybe my computer screen would have ended up like my phone, which is broken, ladies and gentlemen. My phone's broken. It fell. It just fell off the table. I swear that's what happened. Yeah, I mean, the switch from the first half to the second half, the first half, I think Wisconsin only had 2 fouls the entire first half. We had Duke in some foul trouble. Then, partway through the second half, we're up 9 with like 13 minutes to go or something like that. But, yeah, then magically, the least fouling team in the country had 10 fouls halfway through, and I think they finished with like 15 or something like that in the second half. So we couldn't really play any sort of like aggressive defense. Not that Wisconsin usually plays an aggressive defense anyway. They just tend to play a smarter defense, make it hard on teams. But the thing that I really want to not blame, but give the refs a little bit, because they did get some calls that were definitely wrong. Obviously, the out-of-bounds call, 2 very critical, actually, out-of-bounds calls that should have given Wisconsin the ball, and they led to 5 Duke points. That's not to say, again, obviously Wisconsin could have made a stop on those possessions, but if you're looking at replay and you're not getting replay right, I think there's an issue with that, and that's something that they definitely need to look at. I think a day or two after the fact they came out, I was like the head of officiating or replay.
Yeah.
And he said, he's like, hey, they didn't get that view. But I saw it after they walked away from the table, and I didn't call them back over. And he's like, I didn't know if I was supposed to. Yeah, dude, the job's to get the goddamn call right. It takes 3 seconds to press the buzzer, have them come over and say, hey, guys, we got that wrong, off Duke, Wisconsin's ball. It really, yeah. I don't see how that could be that big of an issue. But it was. And, of course, him admitting it after the fact is a little weird. And then, of course, he got corrected by a guy higher up in him in the chain and said he made a mistake. So, I'll believe whoever I want to believe on this. And either way, they got that call wrong. But at the same time, Wisconsin just didn't make plays. I think the last 15 possessions or something, they scored like 5 or 6 points. They came away with some turnovers, some missed shots. And if they just would have played better, we could have won despite, whatever we think the ref issues may have been in that game. And they just didn't get it done, which is unfortunate because they played, obviously, they had a hell of a season, best Wisconsin team probably ever. Multiple NBA kids on this team, at least 3 in Frank, Sam, and Nigel. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Bronson by the time his time is done, because I think he's got tools to be at least get him a potential. He's a good shooter. He's a really good dribbler. And if coach allows him, I think, to kind of, play a little bit loose, which I think he will this year, without Trey being there. I think he kind of looked over his shoulder once Trey came back because his play wasn't quite as good. when Trey started playing versus when it was just him basically being the only guy at the point. But he could drive, he could shoot. Just needs to be a little bit more aggressive and consistent, I think, in his play.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Yeah, just it was hard to watch the end of that game. Those calls obviously were crucial. For the majority of the country that wanted to see the Okafor against Kaminsky matchup, I feel like it really wasn't there because Okafor was on the bench. Like I felt like a lot of the game. Didn't really feel like he made some plays here and there, and there was one play where Kaminsky had him pretty much wrapped up and he dunked it anyways or put it back. I just a lot of times there were a couple times we got some easy slams and we were just like, well, if he's gonna slam it, don't foul him on top of it, like just whatever. I gotta say that Winslow guy that's on Duke, Justice Winslow, he's a good player too. But their guards killed us. There's just no other way around it. Their guards they destroyed us. Like that's where they killed us.
Goddamn white boy, man.
Yeah, that I should know his
Grayson
name, but
Allen.
That guy, yeah, he came off the bench and had 16 points, and every single time they drove, foul. I was like, what? It was a little frustrating. I mean, obviously, you mentioned it. This is probably the best Wisconsin team, minus the one in 1941 that won the title. But obviously, there's a lot different structure then. I think I heard on the radio that they only played with 8 teams in the tournament or something like that. So obviously, a lot different. But as far as modern basketball goes, this is definitely the best Wisconsin team that I can recall. You could really make a big case. It's hard to say, but where would you? Are there any Badgers from this team that you would rank as like the best Badger for like men's basketball from Wisconsin? Any Badgers on this team that would fill that number 1 slot?
I mean, and it's funny you say that because a friend of ours, that we went to high school with, Evan Flood, he runs the Wisconsin 24/7 board, and he threw up a poll, and he just had like a bunch of names listed from some of the greats in Wisconsin history, most of them relatively recent, and asked, the fans who they think is the best. And Frank, I thought Frank would be the winner, but he ran away. Like at one point, I think he had like 72% of the vote. I mean, it was crazy, and that might just be, obviously recency bias and everything.
Sure,
and
caught in the moment sort of thing.
But what he did, the 2 years he was a starter, right? So, I mean, most of the time, great players, especially before we started going pro earlier, a lot of the time, they stay for 3 or 4 years and they make a big impact on those 3 or 4 years. Frank only made an impact for 2. And both those years that he was the starter, we ended up going to the Final Four, one of them being the championship game, one shot away from being in 2 championship games, a National Player of the Year. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. I mean, I don't know, other than winning the title, which obviously basketball, again, team sport, just because you win a title doesn't mean that you're the greatest individual player. But,
yep.
I mean, if I'm going to have to rank him, at least in terms of what they did while they were in college, obviously we don't know what Frank's going to do as a pro, but Devin Harris was great.
Yeah,
Alonzo Tucker was fun. He was fun and a really exciting player. I don't think he was honestly like a great. That's hard to say because he would have won Player of the Year too if he didn't play with the same year as Kevin Durant. And he also led the team, I think, to a number 2 ranking at one point, number 1 that season in 2007, 2008, I think it was, or 2006, 2007. We ended up losing to like UNLV in the friggin' tournament, but besides that, he was good. Harris. If you want to go back to Michael Finley, who at that time was literally the only good person on the team, carrying the team whenever he could, and obviously went on to have a great, NBA career. But yeah, dude, I think for what they've done in college, I think you have to put Frank as, at least recently. Like I can't think of any other Badger that I would put ahead of Frank.
I already know. I'm too caught in the moment. Like, I don't know. like after watching this team and this run that we went on, like just I don't know, there's just something special about Frank Kaminsky, and he just I don't know if it's his personality, if it's because he looks like he's half asleep all the time on the court, or it's just awesome. There's nothing to not like about the kid. I really hope he ends up getting an opportunity in the NBA to get some decent backup minutes and find a little niche for himself somewhere in the league, because I think he can play.
He can, and I mean, it's obviously going to probably be his role. It'll be interesting to see what his role is as a role player. Is he going to be the guy off the bench that's like a stretch four when they want to play small ball? Where he's going to be the five surrounded by a bunch of shooters and drivers, versus a traditional center. I don't know if he is that guy. At least maybe it was just the way that he was taught with Bo. Don't get in foul trouble because we don't have a center that we can put in behind you. If you get in trouble. So his defense wasn't always that sort of, center big guy sort of defense. Right. Though he did have a ton of blocks in his career too. I think he may have actually had the record for a season or in a 2-year span or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he was I felt like he was a pretty decent defensive player. I mean, you mentioned the blocks. He's probably not going to be asked to be a rim protector at the next level, I would guess.
No, probably not. And offensively, obviously, he's got a sort of game that is inside out. His moves around, I think, in the paint, especially since they won't call travels ever. So he'll be able to do that pivot.
Oh, he'll be just fine
thing all day. If you can extend that range out to NBA, which I mean, obviously in the college rank, he was hitting like 40% of his threes, which is ridiculously good, especially for a center type. So he's got the game. I think a lot of the people I follow, though, that follow basketball, they don't think his scoring output and his skill set is great for the NBA. Because athletically, he's not a super above the rim type of guy.
No, he's not.
So that'll be interesting. I mean, Sam's game probably is more suited for that, where he can be run up and down. He's going to be a slasher. It just needs to work. Just needs to work on that shot a little bit. I mean, I know he made 50% of his threes up through the title game, or up until the title game. I think it was like 0 for 6 or 0 for 7 in the title game on threes. If he makes an average night of 33%, it's a totally different game. Not saying that that's his fault. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff, but I think Sam's probably going to be a better pro. And from some things I found, he might be a top 10 pick. Based on what his agents have been saying, they've heard from people so far.
Yeah, I think I definitely think Sam is. I mean, he made the right call to go pro. I mean, I don't think his draft stock's going to be any higher than it is now. I think from what I've read, some scouts think that not that it's a knock on our system or anything, but that when he is in the NBA, he's going to be able to run out and transition and, get those fast break points, whereas Wisconsin tends to slow it down. We don't really do a lot of the run and gun kind of thing. But, I mean, he's athletic. He can shoot the ball well. He's got good size, good length. I think Sam Dekker is going to have a chance to be a really good player at the next level. Maybe not a star, but I think could definitely have some staining power in the NBA, and I think he could be a key factor on a contending team.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks that his tournament was so great, and if that helped elevate his stock, because he went from being like a late teens guy where you're going to be on a probable playoff
team that's right on the edge or
in the playoffs.
In the playoffs, yeah.
To now being perhaps on some scrub team that didn't make the playoffs. Though, hey, if you get drafted by a team, in the West that didn't make the playoffs, you're probably still on a decent team, especially if it was in that like 12 to 15 range. Because there's got to be some teams that aren't going to make the playoffs over there, right?
That's true. Like if you ended up in a situation where you got drafted by maybe the Pelicans, if they don't make the playoffs, although I think that they're actually technically ahead right now on the seeding. Them and the Thunder are 8 and 9.
And I saw one thing too that said if he were to fall this far, he'd be a Heat for sure. Which I mean, him, old Dwayne, and then Chris Bosh would actually kind of be, I guess, sort of interesting. The Heat probably would have been in the playoffs had Bosh not gone down with.
Right, yeah, Bosh going down. They have Whiteside, or what is his name?
Yeah, Hassan Whiteside, though, that guy needs to chill out for a minute.
And they have Goran Dragic.
Yeah, and he wants to stay. I mean, so they got some good pieces down there. So, I mean, that could probably be a good fit for him, too. And then in terms of team success, they'll probably be better off because they don't have to play in the West.
Oh, what if you went to your Pacers?
Pacers are going to make the playoffs, man.
Oh, just kidding.
Maybe.
What if he goes to my Bucks?
They're also in the playoffs, so you'd have to fall.
We'll trade up, okay?
No, I don't know if we'd do that. It'll be interesting to see though what the Bucks do, because obviously with the new management, new coach, and everything, I don't think was Kidd in place when we drafted Jabari.
No, he wasn't.
So yeah, this would be his first. I'm kind of interested to see where he goes with what's available and what his sort of strategy is come draft time.
Was Kidd in place? I remember I watched the next day after the draft when Jabari came to Milwaukee and they did the introductory press conference, and they had John Hammond and they had I think they had the owners, and they had Larry Drew was the coach. And then like a week later they fired him. And Jabari's got to be like, Jabari said on camera, he's like, I would like to, I can see myself spending my whole career here in Milwaukee. And obviously, like that's saying a lot, but he was kind of saying how he didn't want to go. Like he wanted to kind of stay in one place sort of thing. And then so after he said something, that management decides, oh, you're fired, Larry Drew. We just sold our second overall pick of this year's draft on you. Well, guess what? You're fired.
Yeah, that's a little.
But we brought in Jason Kidd, who I know you don't like. But you know what? He brought some. Yeah, okay, fine. You can say you don't like him as a person, but as a basketball mind,
he's done great.
He's done pretty dang good for a team that won 15 games to winning 41 now. Albeit in the East, I know, but
first coach ever to take two separate teams to the playoffs in his first 2 years. Of course, if you're taking the team to a playoff in your first year, chances of you being on a second team the second year is low. So he might be like the only person to ever have that situation. But I mean, hey, that's a good distinction. Obviously, you look at where we were and what we've become, some of the moves we've made, and kind of how we're positioned for the future with all the young guys that have actually, obviously been good enough to win some games to get us into the playoffs. So he's been good for the Bucks from coaching personnel and just trying to get the guys motivated and ready to play every week or every day.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of the Bucks,
before we leave, I just want to say thank you, Wisconsin. Great season.
Yes, I should say it. Thank you, Wisconsin. It was a magical run. It's one that I know 10 years from now, when they decide to randomly, like Frank Kaminsky or Sam Decker decide to randomly show up at the Kohl Center and they show them on TV, I'm going to be like, oh, I remember that guy. And I remember the run that those guys made.
You're going to be telling your little 6-year-old kid at that point that you got to watch those guys in college. Right, Matt? That's going to happen. I mean, 10 years from now, he's 6. That's just 4 years away.
Okay, fine. Maybe.
So, yeah, I just want to throw out there, guys have nothing to be ashamed of, obviously. And I think as fans, a week after that the games ended, and hopefully everyone's chilled out, they can realize that how great of a run that was and, how much that meant for Wisconsin. I think if those guys go pro and they do good, how much that can also mean then for probably recruiting. Of course, Bo probably won't be there by the time we get to see that, but we'll never know. But we'll find out.
Yeah, definitely. So I did want to touch on quick. The Milwaukee Bucks revealed their new logo that we had discussed on a previous podcast a little bit, but we didn't. They unveiled the whole thing. I'm sure you've seen some of it by now, Brett.
Yep.
Do you still feel the same way about it that you did before?
I still think that M looks really stupid standalone. I
agree. I don't like it it looks good though with the whole
deer. That design with that deer is nice. I mean, obviously there's that little basketball that's kind of hidden in the antlers up there. I like that. That looks good. The deer as a whole, I actually like the color scheme. I don't know how I felt about cream, but cream looks fine. I think the Wisconsin, because they have the Wisconsin logo too, which is tan and green or whatever, but then they have like blue outlines where the water's supposed to be.
You're right, they do.
Which I thought was it's kind of cool because it's like, yeah, there's water there. I think it also looks a little weird though because it's the only blue that's in any of the 3 logos that they unveiled. So, but yeah, I kind of like it a lot. Other than that, standalone. Somebody said it almost looks like an Arena League team because they always have some weird outlandish designs for arena stuff, gimmicky stuff. But yeah, I think it looks good, and I'm pleased with it. I can't be wrong. I hope they bring back on throwback nights, though. I would like to see those old purple jerseys.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with you though. Overall, I like the logos that they showed. I think that one logo involving the whole state. I think it's kind of showing that I think they're making a commitment and that they really want to stay in Wisconsin and Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee by no means is like one of the bigger markets as far as an NBA team is concerned. So I feel like when they bought the team and, they said all those things about trying to keep it, now it sounds like, they're I don't know if anyone who listens to this has seen, but they put out like some renderings of what a new stadium, and this would be like a $1 billion project. It'd be the stadium, and it would be some of the surrounding buildings around this. There's going to be like a kind of like an all-inclusive like sports watching area. But it sounds like a really cool idea, and I think it would be really good for the city. Now, if any of that ends up getting approved, I don't know, but obviously the new logo is showing that the Bucks want to move forward and go in a new, more aggressive direction, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's nice. Like I said, I don't know. That stuff hasn't been approved, you said, right, for the stadium. I did see the stuff online, though. It looked like it'd be pretty nice to have.
Yeah.
So you're definitely right with that Wisconsin logo. That hadn't even popped into my head. That
they incorporated the whole state like that because they clearly are making a point that in management and the owners, like, obviously had a big hand in this. They're clearly making a point that they want to stay in Wisconsin.
Definitely, and I like that because I would hate for them to leave. I mean, Wisconsin's the only thing that we're missing from like a major 4 sports is hockey. But hey, we've got the men's and women's hockey team at UW, which like kind of makes up for it. In terms of like, what we have in states. I mean, if they were to leave, I think that kind of put a downer on us. And then, I mean, like I'd still follow the team, of course, but it's like
it wouldn't be the same.
It'd definitely be a lot different.
I would get to know how Seattle feels.
Yeah.
I don't want to know how Seattle feels.
We can bring the Thunder back to Milwaukee. How about that? We'll start the Milwaukee Thunder franchise.
Oh, my God.
Sorry, I guess it wouldn't be the Thunder. It'd be the Milwaukee Supersonics, which wouldn't make any sort of sense at all. So that, I like that, and I'm glad you pointed that out because that hadn't even crossed my mind as them sort of making like a commitment to the state. I like that. And then just one other thing too to touch on real quick, it won't take up much time at all, is I thought it was kind of funny because we always talk about NBA teams tanking so they can get the best odds for the number 1 overall pick. Well, the New York Knicks ended up beating the Atlanta Hawks, who I'm assuming probably sat some guys on the bench because the Hawks have the seed clinched for number 1 overall. But they ended up winning, and that actually puts them ahead at the moment of Minnesota, who is now in position to have the number 1 overall pick if the ping pong balls fall the way they were. So I just thought it was a little funny and interesting that while we say everyone's tanking, somehow the Knicks even managed to fail at that during their failure of the season.
Well, and it's funny because I think there is something to getting the worst record because it automatically guarantees you. I think that the worst you can get is like pick 4 or something. Like guaranteed. Like doesn't matter what else happens, you're guaranteed at least the 4th pick. So potentially New York could maybe be screwing themselves, but I guess I don't know. We'll see. Boy, I tell you what though, if there's a lot of good NBA players coming out this year that I think are going to be able to make an impact. I don't know. I mean, not that last year was bad by any means. Like I don't know. For some reason this year, maybe it's because I followed college basketball a little better this year because the Badgers did so good. But I feel like I did that last year too. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of good players this year.
There are. I mean, you're looking at
All those Kentucky guys.
7 Kentucky dudes, couple of Duke guys. You know, Sam and Frank. Hell, I mean, that's by itself. There's probably 7 or 8 just from those 3 teams that are going to be first-round picks. You're looking at the kid from Ohio State.
Yeah, he's
sort of like a point guard shooting guard combo.
I was really forgetting about that Mundy guy who went overseas to play in China.
Yeah, he's going to be great too. Well, should be. I mean, I don't know what his numbers and stuff are like over there, but he's going to be like a top 5 pick. I mean, there's going to be some talents. I mean, even if you have like the 4th or 5th pick, if the ping pong balls don't fall your way,
probably not in the world.
You're still going to get a good player. But I mean, having the opportunity to make the choice of anybody you want and having that number 1 spot, if you can get the ping pong balls. Though the last team I think that had the number 1 pick that also had the worst record, it's been a few years. I don't think the ping pong balls have actually lined up that way for them.
It hasn't. You're right. It has been a while since that has actually happened. And I specifically remember one year where one team got really screwed and they were by far the worst team. And I'm referring to the year that Anthony Davis went first overall and got picked by the Hornets, who now are the Pelicans. And the team that he should have been on
ever
was the Bobcats, which are owned by Michael Jordan and are now the Hornets again. Not to get everyone confused about logos and team names and everything. But the Bobcats / Hornets got screwed that year.
Yeah, they did. I forgot about that. That does really stink because they didn't. Did they win like 9 or 10 games? Awful. It was bad. It was bad.
They didn't get the first pick.
Right, they should have given them some extra ping pong balls for how bad they were. Just like totally just changed the formula because that team's done. No, I'm sure some people out there are saying that Michael Jordan would have screwed up that draft like he seems to have done every other draft pick that he's basically ever made. Anthony Davis is their number 1.
Yeah.
But hey, they made the playoffs last year. I mean, at East, but so that. It's not a guarantee, but I did think it was kind of funny that the Knicks somehow ended up winning a game that they probably at this point in the season should have just managed to
let go.
So, I mean, if you're a player, obviously you're not out there just fucking around.
Right.
So you're still giving it your all, so I can see how that would happen. But I'm sure like the GM up in the press box was shaking his head or something, just wondering why they're winning the game now.
Sends Derek Fisher a text message. What are you doing?
You're fired. Don't come back tomorrow. That's what you get for winning. No, Phil Jackson's probably doing all right, I think. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny and interesting to kind of talk about real quick before we move on to the stuff we always talk about, being football. We mentioned this before the debate with Mariota and Winston. Apparently, word starting to spread now that the Bucs more interested in Mariota than they are in Winston. Don't believe in Winston being able to lead a franchise. What do you think of that?
I think it's rubbish. I think it is. Someone is clearly just blowing smoke and trying to get attention. If the Bucs don't take Winston, now this albeit if something serious comes out about he did something or some more information comes out about his off the field issues, fine. Then I totally get it. But if they're not worried about that, this is ridiculous. Like, he is by far the better prospect to be the number 1 overall pick. And I know you don't like him, and I know you don't think he can play, Brett, but
I didn't say anything about his play. Man, throw me a bone here. I think I've said.
I'm pretty sure you made fun of his weight, Brett. His weight is fine.
He's fat. He's still a fat guy. It doesn't mean that he can't play.
At least he's not going to get broken in half like Mariota's gonna.
Mariota's fast enough to evade these dudes.
Brett, can you name any running quarterback that's in his 30s?
Michael Vick is in his 30s.
Michael Vick, he doesn't start.
Well, he's there. Tavares Jackson's going to be in his 30s.
Yeah, you're right. He
also doesn't start.
My point is if Mariota's going to – I mean, he's young, so whatever, but they don't last. Like, you got to learn how to pass from the pocket. And granted, albeit, obviously he's got he's just gonna be a rookie. Like, I think if the right team gets a hold of him, he'll be all right. I don't know. Do you buy anything to this? Do you really think the Bucs are gonna take Mariota over Winston?
Do I really think they would? Probably not. Though I think it would be interesting, right? Because obviously there was a lot of talk Winston going one, Mariota being maybe two, maybe he falls. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see at that point what happens because I think if Tennessee thinks that we're going to stick it out with Mettenberger for a year, I mean, obviously there's Oakland, there's Jacksonville. Neither of those teams is drafting a quarterback. At 3 and 4, so you're looking at
3 and 4, you're good.
I don't know about who's got 5.
Washington.
Right. So I mean, there's them. And I think the Jets are at 6. I mean, those teams are intriguing. If RG3 wasn't your style of quarterback, though, I can't imagine you're going to draft Mariota up there.
I can't either. And that's the other thing. They gave up so much to get RG3. You almost have to give him one more shot. Like you gave the kitchen sink to him or for him. I mean, you gotta give him one more shot. Maybe the Jets take maybe the Jets take Mariota. They have Geno. I don't know. Mariota would be interesting in New York, I think.
Right. But where I was kind of leading with that was, let's say you're the Eagles, and you get a phone call from the Titans, and they're like, hey, we're about to take Mariota. Are you guys interested? Now, where it is, maybe they are. Who knows? Chip, he's a little nuts. He's kind of crazy. He might just literally trade the whole draft up and get Mariota, and throw in Sam Bradford for good measure. You don't need him anymore, hopefully. I think with the Bucs doing that, it is kind of almost like saying, hey, Philly, if you guys really want this dude, you're going to have to trade up to here. Now, the way to do that wouldn't be trading all the way up to 1 right away. You would probably flip with Tennessee, give them a bunch of stuff to move up to 2. Then if you're Tampa Bay, you just want to do a flip-flop, trade back 1 spot so you can still have them draft whichever quarterback.
Still get the guy that you want,
and then still pick up an extra pick or an extra player or something out of it just to fall back a spot and get the guy that you really wanted. Though I think it would be hilarious if Chip did that and then took Mariota 1 instead of Winston number 1 and just like totally screwed over like Tampa Bay. They're like, now you gotta take Mariota. I dare you. At that point, maybe we'll see like a draft day movie reenactment where actually they call back and they say, F you, we want our pick back and all the other shit we gave up to. But I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't think so. It's like you mentioned when we first started talking about this. It's that time of the season where some stuff gets leaked, and none of it's really probably that true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't buy into many rumors, but one that I'm really starting to seriously kind of buy into is the idea that the Chargers might trade up to get number 2 and might trade Phillip Rivers to do it. There's been talk for a while. I don't know. Have you heard anything out of the Rivers camp at all?
I was reading something, and it said that he wasn't interested in renegotiating or signing on long term, especially with the the rumors and stuff that the team's going to move to LA.
Oh, yeah.
So I haven't heard anything specifically, but just some of the other stuff I've read. I don't know if it's people in the know or if they're just kind of assuming, but yeah, it sounds like he's not super interested in re-signing, which basically gives them. I think he's only got 1 year. This is his last year on his deal.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're the Chargers, it's got to be like, yo, if you're not going to re-sign with us, we got to get something out of you more than the season. And if you don't think that you're a title team, you have the 17th pick this year, I think. So you're not like a great team. You still got Tom Brady and Peyton Manning over in the AFC you got to compete with. Maybe you just give it up and you say, all right, time to rebuild. I mean, there's no shame in trying to do that. You always got to be looking for the future.
Yep.
So if you can move up and if you like Mariota and you want to get him, I'm sure he'd probably like to stay out west. So he probably would like getting drafted by San Diego at number 2. And then if you're Tennessee, so you drop from 2 to 17, probably so you get the 17th pick and Phillip Rivers. I mean, your team's better now. And at 17, you're still going to get a guy that's going to help your team out because, one, I think the first round is actually probably the first 50 picks. I think overall you get a lot of quality guys in there. And you have a lot of needs. I mean, regardless of what you draft, you're going to be improving your team, at the quarterback position, which makes you way better than you were before.
Yep.
Plus, still getting a better player at a different position too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all the points you made on that for sure. I mean, yeah, I think it'd be I think it'll be a win-win situation. And the more I think about it, the more I think right now I think there are too many teams that are so quarterback needy that I just don't see any way that Mariota doesn't go number 2. But I'm just not sure Tennessee will be the team making the pick. Because there's been rumors, the Bears have been circles and rumors. They're looking for someone to unseat Cutler. We talked about the Jets, maybe Washington. I mean, there's a lot of teams that need quarterback help. So who knows? I mean, maybe a surprise team jumps in the fray and decides they want to trade up. I really think Mariota will go number 2. Just not sure if it'll be to the Titans.
I'm starting to agree with that. Yeah, because at one point I thought, maybe he'd fall, but it's looking like he's definitely probably going to be like the number 2 overall. It'll just be interesting to see what happens because I always like when the trades happen. It makes it a little bit more exciting.
I agree. It's fun. And of all the teams that we just talked about, maybe Tennessee just sits there and takes them.
yeah, right. And then we'll have spent 10 minutes talking about Tennessee and Phillip Rivers, and they'll just take Mariota. So yeah, that'll be kind of fun and interesting to see what happens with that as well.
Sure. So while we're still on the subject of the NFL draft, one of the fans of the show brought up a point to me about how Todd Gurley is coming off. Well, first let me ask you this, Brett. First, what value do you place on a running back in today's NFL as far as the NFL draft's concerned? Would you draft one in the first round?
See, it's interesting because if you look at the teams that were in the Super Bowl, right? You have Seattle, who obviously runs that offense basically through Marshawn, and then when they didn't, they ended up not winning the game. And then you have New England, basically sticks whoever the hell they want in it, running back any single week, never consistent at all. They won the game. So it's weird. I think it depends on what type of team you want to be. Now, if you've got a younger quarterback or you got a great offensive line, I think you should draft a guy back there that's going to be able to make differences, especially if he's got that Lynch type, that Adrian Peterson, not an asshole type of running back. I think you definitely have to at least take that shot on him, especially if in your mind, those guys are better than the guys that will be available in the second round. Because sure, you could take a guy second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever other round you want to draft a running back in, and you could probably stick him behind a good offensive line, and he's going to be a productive guy. But is he going to be a difference maker? And if you think that a running back is truly going to be a difference maker, he can catch the ball in the backfield, he can break plays big. Sure, I mean that adds value to the team because teams are going to have to respect that. And if they don't, then you're just going to gash them, kind of like what Dallas did, with DeMarco Murray even. So it kind of helps out, both pass game and then I don't believe in the controlling the clock sort of thing. Obviously, Chip Kelly doesn't probably really believe in that either, even though to be successful. So I don't think it really helps unless you're winning right at the end of a game. Maybe that'll help you out then and kind of trying to draw out the clock. But yeah, I know I just went on a random tangent there, but definitely if you feel a guy's a playmaker, you can draft him in the first round. But if not, obviously you can get really good running backs elsewhere. Yeah,
I mean, if you remember it's been a couple of years now since a running back was taken in the first round.
Trent Richardson's year, was that the year?
That was the last year that a running back was taken. He was taken third overall. And you think the very next year, Eddie Lacy was taken in the second round. And
Le'Veon Bell.
Giovanni Bernard was actually, I think, the first running back taken. There's another running back that is in that second round. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, Broncos fans probably forgot his name too.
How can I forget? Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, boy, shucks. Gosh, I couldn't remember what his name was. anyways, yes, I mean those guys were all second round picks. Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I think, like you mentioned, if it's a special player, if it's someone that is going to be the talent level of like Adrian Peterson, then I think you take him in the first round. If it's someone who, I don't know, unless you think they're that special, like a Watson, a 12 or 13-year kind of running back, I don't know. I don't know if I spend a first round pick on one. I like Melvin Gordon like crazy, and it's weird because I feel like if you're picking near the top of the draft to the middle of the draft, I feel like running back might be kind of a reach. Now, if you take Melvin Gordon at the end of the first round, then I'm like, ooh, like, you know, I feel like for that value, because I really feel like Melvin Gordon is a top 12 to like 15 player, like overall in the entire draft.
Mm-hmm.
I think and same with probably who we're going to say, Gurley,
yeah.
And like same with him, like the value is really high, but because of how, you know, Arian Foster, undrafted rookie. I mean, the fact that, you know, some of these running backs can just, you know, or like your boy Coleman from Indiana. I mean, you know, he could get drafted, you know, second round, and gosh, he could, for all we know, he could end up with more yards than Gurley and Gordon.
Right, and I mean, and that's the difference, I think, because like obviously recruiting for running back, I think is probably a little hard because you got to take into account so much of the other stuff too, like what happens with the offensive line. You know, so if you're just going to be a stat guy and you're just looking at stats and saying, wow, that was amazing, that was a big run. Well, sure, if he didn't get touched by anybody, it probably means the offensive line and the receivers were also doing a great job. But if you could put most players, you know, in that offensive system and say that's great, which is why I think it's cool that, you know, Pro Football Focus now does their college football focus stuff, because they look at some of the things like yards after contact on every single run, average, you know, and then like kind of grade them out, you know, based on, you know, what they should have done beyond what the offensive line was giving them and the receivers. So, I mean, I think that's something that this is the first year they've done that. I think some teams are going to start looking into that sort of stuff to try to maybe find some kind of hidden value guys. Now, of course, Gordon, I think, actually was on the top list for most of those, at least top 10, top 5 for most of that stuff. And actually saw Tevin was in there too. I think he had the most yards after contact of anyone in the country other than Gurley. He might have actually been ahead of Gurley on that. So, yeah, like you said, you know, Tevin might be one of those guys who, by the way, has his pro day tomorrow. Oh, was that today? Shit, I don't remember. Anyway, I hope it's tomorrow because I kind of want to go and watch that. So, yeah, you could draft a guy later and it'd be okay. But, I mean, for me, it's kind of like if you have a guy that's rated highly, and if you, like you said, he's a top 10 to 15 guy and you're sitting there at 24, 27, something like that.
Yeah.
You could take him because, I mean, that's not a reach, especially even if you're just sticking to the board. You know, that's getting great value at the end of the first because you got a top 15 player.
Yep, I completely agree. So with that, I kind of mentioned before, a fan of the show kind of asked a little question to me, and he wanted to know, so a lot of people are saying Gurley is, you know, a lock first, or maybe not lock, but they're saying, you know, first round pick, even though he tore his ACL. First off, would you take Gurley in the first round? And the second question is, would you take Gordon ahead of Gurley based off Gurley having the ACL injury?
That's a good question. I know we even talked about that beforehand, and I thought about it, but I still don't have a great answer. I would draft Gurley even with the ACL injury. You look at guys now. I mean, ACL is not a career killer. It's not even barely a year killer. You know, for some dudes, depending on when that injury happens. So he should be ready. He might miss some of the camp stuff, and you know what? If he misses all that camp stuff, that's fine. Work him in slow when he gets the chance, and let him play at the end of the year. Or if you just want to redshirt him, you're kind of like basically like what Willis McGahee did. You know, who we brought up. It was a first-round pick, despite being his knee literally going the wrong freaking direction. One of the weirdest, grossest injuries I've ever witnessed. So yeah, I would. Would I draft him ahead of Gordon? I don't know. I think the injury stuff does freak me out. He's got his medical check again in Indianapolis this weekend. So teams will get to, finally poke and prod at him because he didn't let them do that at the combine. So this will be a few more, 2 more months removed. So maybe he'll let them take a closer look and they'll get a better idea of whether or not they have a red light on his knee. But I mean, ACLs, I think they're easier to come back from now than they had been before, and that
Definitely.
wouldn't scare me away from a guy.
The medicine or the medical field is, as far as ACL injuries go, has gotten much better. The thing is the last 2 years, well, really, I guess 3, but I liked Gurley ever since he was a freshman, and I remember watching highlights of him, and I was at Georgia, and I was like, wow, this kid is crazy good. And I remember thinking that he was going to be a first-round pick someday in the NFL. And, if it wasn't for this ACL injury, I know that we both like Gordon a lot, but I think Gurley would be rated higher.
And despite the knee injury, a lot of teams still have him rated higher.
I think they do too. And I'm not going to lie. I would be one of those teams that I don't think I would. Maybe I'm being biased, but I just couldn't see myself spending a mid-first round pick on a guy that just tore his ACL, and I know I'm not going to be able to have at my disposal for X amount of games. Even if in the long run, I guess maybe he might be the better running back, but I don't know. I don't think the offensive line that Wisconsin had was our best offensive line ever by any means. I think a lot of stuff Gordon did, he did on his own. Everyone still kind of questions if he can catch the ball, and people argue that Gurley has more experience catching the ball and stuff like that. And yeah, he does maybe, but I don't know. I don't think there's any reason why Gordon can't. Like, he did do it some this year, not a ton, but some. He made a couple, kind of difficult catches. I don't know. They're both playmakers. They both are guys that you want to get the ball in their hands. But I think if I was a general manager and I had to choose between Gurley and Gordon right now, I think I would take Gordon just because I feel like, and it granted, freak accidents can happen anytime. Any sort of hit can end your career, but Gordon doesn't exactly have the previous ACL injury coming into the league. So I think I would take Gordon for that reason. But I can't really argue with you either in saying that that you think Gurley should go ahead of him too. So
it's funny. Okay, so one of the arguments sometimes for running backs, especially Wisconsin guys, is that they have no more tread on their tires because they've been used so often, right? So you're looking at that and you're like, see, so he's only got so much tread left versus a guy like Gurley who doesn't have as many carries. Well, the goddamn problem is Gurley was hurt for 2 years, so he didn't have the opportunity to have as many carries. If you're telling me that they wouldn't have, fed him the ball all the time, especially if they were more difficult, closer games. Though I will say with Georgia's defensive backfield or offensive backfield, they probably didn't need Gurley all the time. Obviously, Nick Chubb is a stud, and have another guy back there who had a great year after Gurley went down. So maybe they would have been able to kind of, string it out a little bit more than Wisconsin did this year, since it was just him and Corey Clement at Wisconsin with Gordon. But still, I think that's kind of, if anyone were to ever use that as an argument in discussing the two, well, then it's kind of a moot point, because obviously they haven't taken into account the fact that, sure, he has more carries, hasn't been injured. Gurley's had less carries, has been injured. So
maybe it's different competition, but
don't even bring that up because that's some horseshit.
Just saying, that's what their excuse is gonna be.
I know, their excuse is lame. They need to go back and look at the tape.
Look at the tape. Yeah, that's what they say. Look at the tape.
Right? Mayock's got him number 1. He
also has Mariota, I think, ahead of Winston. So I don't know how much I listen to that guy.
Nah, not anymore, probably. Maybe he's a little past his prime. I don't really know what I'm supposed to take because most of these guys probably don't know anything. If you're talking about it, I don't even think the scouts that work for teams probably know for sure who's great and who's not. obviously, since they miss on draft picks all the time.
They do.
But that's kind of what makes it fun. You know, we all get to have our opinions, and in the end, long run, we can look back and say, see, I was right or I was wrong and I made a mistake. So kind of makes it fun and interesting.
And you know what? I was one last quick point to bring up. So I was listening to I don't remember what show it was. Shoot. I was listening to some show on ESPN radio, and they were talking about, I think they had Mel Kiper on as a guest. Or was it? It was either Kiper. I think it was Kiper, and he brought up. He's like, all these general managers get fired. He's like, at what point is it the coaching staff's fault for not developing the player that they drafted?
Right, that does make some sense. I mean, because most of these guys that are getting drafted should at least have the physical ability and talent to sort of compete. I mean, you shouldn't miss that badly, especially if you're taking like high picks. Like, I don't know how when you get like the choice of the litter basically, and you miss on a guy.
Yeah, those high picks when you miss, those hurt.
Yeah, and is that the player's fault? Is that the management's fault? Is that coaching staff? Probably a little bit of all three. You know,
Probably.
You misevaluated, didn't play to a kid's strengths or something like that, and maybe the kid just wasn't motivated enough to get better, or maybe he had injuries and stuff, which happen, and you can't really account for those during the scouting process.
That's true. So with that said, anything else you'd like to go over?
I don't think so. I mean, the NFL released the draft list. Could have talked about like the surprises and stuff like that, but at this point, I think we're running up to 50 minutes on our show, which is I think a lot longer than we expected. We were going to actually talk about tonight.
So we were like, oh, this will probably be a short show. Oh.
So we won't really talk about that. I mean, though there were a couple surprises, definitely some kids that are going to be at the draft that are probably going to be second day picks. But that's fine. Just get to enjoy Chicago for another night, you know?
Yep.
So that's all I got. Yeah, what about you, man?
Yeah, that's it. So with that said, once again, we would like to thank all the people that liked our Facebook page. If you ever want to follow us, he's at Brett Staley. I'm at Matt's Pop. You can also follow our Twitter handle, the Bread and Matt Show. We also have a website if you'd ever like to check that out. But once again, guys, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.